I remember some people were talking about $3K for an apprenticeship, $3,000.
It seems like an astronomical number.
That seems like an impossible amount of money to get when you're at that level, when you're first starting, because you're like, yo, I'm making $0K a month. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
$0K.
Like, it's ramen and hot and spicy chicken sandwiches over here. Like,
I just
I'm
got
on
out
the
of
bus.
prison and I live with my mom. You know what I mean? Like, welcome to Fart Friends. I'm James Withee. We have Adam Williams here. We have Xavier Price there. And this video basically is going to be the sort of thing where we talk about tattoo apprenticeships and the benefits of getting one as opposed to being self-taught. And we're going to talk about the current state of the industry, how shit was in the past. I feel like we have a lot of value to add to the internet and YouTube as far as this subject goes, because we're all professional tattooers that have been doing this for quite a long time. Collectively, we have, several decades of experience between us.
Yep.
So, I feel like we could talk about that and give you guys some advice out there on how to get an apprenticeship and why you should get an apprenticeship if you're trying to get into tattooing. So, what do you got to say about that, X?
Yeah, man. Anytime anyone ever comes to me and they're seeking to get into the tattoo industry or just looking for, general advice, direction, or where to go, apprenticeship is usually the first thing that I bring up, because I feel it provides a significant amount of value because it helps a younger artist to, pretty much pole vault over those pitfalls that they would fall into, had they just be going into it blind. There's so much shit that can so much game that could just be kicked out, for free. Well, not necessarily for free, but they're not going to make the same mistakes that they would have made with the mentor, than without the mentor. Not to say that it's not impossible to learn by yourself, because I know a lot of dope-ass tattooers, we all do, that are self-taught, but they'll probably tell you it was the harder route.
I'm pretty sure we started out self-taught.
Nah,
To
I
a
started
certain
an
extent,
apprenticeship.
I did an
To a degree.
apprenticeship. I did an apprenticeship, but I started tattooing in prison, so I was
And then we
somewhat
did an
self-taught
apprenticeship.
before I got an apprenticeship,
Right.
and then
Which is typically like a no-go. I think
I
any
think
of
a lot
us
of
would
people do that
recommend,
though.
like,
It's common. It's a no-go, but it's
just
common.
natural curiosity. I think all of us were just like, yeah, I want a tattoo.
I started with the apprenticeship first, because at first I was going to do that, and then I did my
You
usual.
started out straight off with an apprenticeship?
Yeah, bro. I started because I usually, when I get into something, I get into it heavy, similar to him, and I
I
do
know
all
you
my
guys
research
Yeah,
and
us
shit.
both do.
So I was on Google
of
like
us,
a
yeah,
motherfucker. Like I was getting ready to buy a kit. I was looking up tattoo kit shit, and then I was like, hold on, let me do a little extra
Was
recon.
Amazon even around though?
No.
This was,
It was just
pre-Amazon.
through Google, whatever
What
website
year?
was.
Amazon.
What year did you start in?
2010.
2010. I
Yeah.
started. Outside of when I got out of prison, as far as having access to the internet and doing all that research and shit, it was
Yeah.
2000, end of 2011, 2012. So similar era.
Right.
What about you?
Right about the same time. I want to say 2010.
Yeah.
2011. I
So the
graduated high
information
school in 2011.
that was available for us three was similar at that time, which
It was
is
very
totally
slim.
different than what's out
It was
there
slim
now.
pickings
Yeah.
back then.
It was bad back then.
But as far as the scratching goes, I did end up scratching. But I had 2 apprenticeships. I had one for 6 months, and then the mentor left or whatever, and then I fucking scratched in my mom's house until I could find another one.
I
So,
think that's an important thing
you know.
to kind of take note of too. Is just because you get an apprenticeship doesn't mean it's just a linear path to becoming a tattoo artist. There could be a lot of factors that go into that, where maybe your mentor doesn't even stick around at the shop, and then you kind of have to figure out a situation where
That
you find
happened to me.
another artist.
Yeah.
James, that happened to you.
Happened to me. My first mentor basically just stopped showing up, and he still tattoos here and there, but he's the kind of guy that he'll come back to it and then leave it alone because he has personal problems. Then he'll come back to it, and he does that, and he's kind of inconsistent with it. And then one of those times where he just left it alone was smack dab in the middle of my apprenticeship, and I had to basically hit somebody else up that was working at the shop I was doing my apprenticeship at.
Who was actually my mentor as well.
It was actually, shout out to Jev.
Jevy, you were the man.
Jevy's
if
the
you
man.
ever see this,
Yeah.
on everything, man.
And Jevy basically picked up where the other dude left off and helped me finish my apprenticeship. So sometimes it's not, like he said, it's not linear, and you're going to have to kind of roll with some punches. And sometimes you might be partially self-taught and then get an apprenticeship and then finish, or you might be partially self-taught, get an apprenticeship, go back to being self-taught, and then finish until you become a tattoo artist professionally from there. Sometimes you are in an apprenticeship, maybe fail your apprenticeship and get kicked out, and then have to be self-taught and then continue on from there until you're a professional. So there's not just one way to do it or skin that cat.
It's that by any means mentality.
Yeah, if they don't let you in through the front door, you go in through the window.
Do what you gotta
Absolutely.
do. That's why I don't really rag on scratchers ever.
No,
you know what I'm
me
saying?
neither.
No, I
Like,
mean, if you're doing it,
like you do what you gotta do. You know what I'm saying?
As long as
Like,
you're trying to get good.
just-
If you're a
yeah.
scratcher that's a piece of shit, that's like, all
you're
right,
just
well,
collecting money and shit.
collecting
you
money,
know?
you're doing it for the 30 pack of beer, and you're not
Right.
even using clean equipment or don't have any desire to get better as far as like your management of cross-contamination and aseptic technique, and you're not doing any research on how to get better at the tattoos and become like safer at doing it.
Safety is a big benefit. It's like get sanitary equipment, just making sure that you're taking the proper steps in order to not send somebody to the hospital, or just maintain clean environments. I think that's something in our industry that is so important and so crucial.
Yeah, because it is a quasi-medical procedure.
What kind of advice would you guys give to someone out there who could be watching this who is interested in getting an apprenticeship?
My advice for that typically stands from an artistic standpoint first. Have your art together. You want to have at least, like, I'd say anywhere between 10 to 20 of your best recent pieces, not shit that you drew 10 years ago, not shit that you drew 5 years ago. What did you draw this year? Your best shit, or at least the last 2 years, some shit like that.
I don't like seeing sketches, just saying.
I want
maybe full rendered.
fully rendered shit.
I like both. I like it when they show sketches and the fully rendered shit. I just want to see that the person is drawing often and that they're able to do this shit. Because I mean, tattooers, a lot of times we're doing art for 8 hours a day, 5-6 days a week or whatever. Are you capable of doing that? So if you have fully rendered shit, like Adam said, that's really great proof that you're able to like have that craftsmanship and that dedication to finish something all the way through and follow through on it.
The longevity.
And that's extremely important to be like, okay, can you make finished art? But the sketches, to me, I like to see both. I don't want to see just sketches, but I also like to see sketches in addition, because that shows like, okay, are you doing like the little throwaway drawings where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna draw for half an hour here, half an hour there, every single day. But
Are you
I also
putting
have
in the
serious
consistent
shit.
grind?
Exactly.
You rarely see that though. You don't really see a lot of like people that give you both. I feel like from my experience, when I see people that come in the shop looking for an apprenticeship, there's two ends of the spectrum. You got the motherfucker that's coming from the professional art background. They got their whole portfolio together, or a dope digital presence, or you have some kid with their little paper sketches all loose in a fucking an expandable file or some shit.
It's important to say, like, it's apples and oranges, and one of those scenarios is not necessarily better than the other when it comes to like potential of a tattooer. So
I've seen people that suck that have both of those setups.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I've had people come in with a legit portfolio thing that's like that big. You know what I mean? It's obvious they went to school, college, and they have all them type shits, and all their shit sucks.
Right. They feel all validated and shit. Like, I went to fucking art school.
Yeah,
or there's
they
some
feel
kid,
like they're the bomb,
or there's some kid who's just like doodling, just like
it's all legit.
putting
This shit could
hours
be gangster,
in, putting
bro.
in the work, all the hours, and his shit's all loose and all over the place, and
but it's good.
It's not good presentation, but it's good artwork.
That's true.
That's more important to me.
Absolutely.
The artwork being better is more important than having gone to art school. I've met a lot of people that are looking for apprenticeships that have went to art school that aren't as good as people that were just drawing at home.
Straight up.
So to continue on X's point, as far as like the artwork coming first, I feel like that's definitely true. Like, wanting to be a tattooer is wanting to be a tattooer, but if you aren't producing art on a regular basis, that kind of shows that like you have the foundation there to be, because tattooing and making fine art, whether it's drawing, painting, all that sort of stuff, they're all interrelated because it's all just different artistic media. Then tattooing is just one more medium that you need to learn how to control. Of course, there's that medical side to it that we just talked about a little bit earlier, but it's just one more medium that you have to control. And all the stuff you did in all the other artistic media, whether it's watercolor, pencil sketches, pen sketches, whatever, all those conceptual things you learned and practiced, they still translate over to tattooing. So if you're not doing any of those other things first and you don't draw at all and you want to be a tattooer, then you're trying to run before you can walk, before you've crawled.
You probably should spend the next year to 2 years just in your room grinding.
Drawing
before you even look for an apprenticeship.
Yep.
Staying up
because if
late.
you don't have that portfolio, then nobody's gonna take a chance
serious
on you. Nobody's gonna take you seriously. You need a portfolio. That's rule number one. Build a portfolio.
Right. And then after that, don't call shops. Don't ever call a shop.
Don't have your mom call the shop.
Right.
Dude,
I've
that has
had that happen
happened
too,
That
yeah.
has happened a few times.
Parents.
Do not have your parents hold your hand through this
People
process.
want to see
Please
how
don't.
serious you are. You need to show up in person. You need to have, at least do your research on the shop, so you're not just some dude just trying to get in anywhere. Know where you're gonna be at, want to actually be there, want to work with specific artists that are there. You know, you should have some kind of respect for the shop that you're going into. That's my opinion on it. But
that's what I did. I researched all the best shops in my area, and I started showing up.
And then you shoot your shot.
Man, you shoot your shot and you go in there. But you know what? There's one thing I kind of regret is that I went with the shops that I thought were the very best first, and I had no idea what I was going when I went in there. So my shot was not a good shot. It was an ugly shot because I had no clue what was going on. And I feel like
I don't think that's a bad thing. It's like aim
you
high,
can go back.
and then you know what I mean.
So you don't
like,
want to go to the wax shop
you
first, and
end
they
up.
tell you yes, and then that's where you end up.
But what if the dope shop would have been like, I'm gonna give him a shot? You know what I mean?
Maybe,
Like,
yeah. So
Right,
shoot
because
your
if you
shot.
fail, you come back, you know, 3-6 months later and be like, hey, look at what I'm doing now type of shit. Like,
I will say,
then that could
so
be
with
the
new
thing
art.
that pushes you over because they'd be like, oh, look at them, how much progression he's made in this 3 to 6 month period type of shit. You know? So don't let them up tell you no and just be like, all right, that's it. You know,
Don't be discouraged from going to those types of shops.
Yeah.
I would say that we all work at pretty, you know, like well reputable shops. Xavier works at Royal Craft Gallery, which isn't far from James's shop that I actually work at, Dark Horse Tattoo Company over in Gilbert.
in my opinion, these are two of the best shops in
They're
Arizona.
great.
They
Absolutely.
are two of the
We're
best shops in
stacked,
Arizona.
honestly.
At least top 10. You know?
But don't
for
ever
sure.
be discouraged. We have people coming in asking us for apprenticeships constantly, and there's never been a time where we're just like, kick rocks, get out of here. We're all artists. We've all put in the work and been exactly where you are, and
Bare minimum, someone's
try
gonna
to
look
take
at your
that
shit.
time to make sure that we are open to a critique and you know, just being able to kind of like walk you through those steps.
Expect that. Expect somebody to look at the bare minimum, like X said, somebody is gonna look at your portfolio and be expected to have it critiqued, be expected for people to say things that are, you know, gonna be negative about your art. A lot of times they're gonna rip your art apart just to see how you react, because there's people out there that might be pretty good at drawing from a novice standpoint. They're not as good as like a real good professional tattooer, but they might be in the situation where their whole life their family and friends told them, oh man, these drawings are so amazing, wow. So they have this huge ego, and when they go into a tattoo shop where everybody's better than them, and then they get their portfolio
torn down.
ripped apart and everything gets critiqued, they can't handle it. And that right there is a big sign that you're not ready for a tattoo apprenticeship, because that's what an apprenticeship about is learning. And if you can't be critiqued and you can't be told when you're doing something wrong without getting your panties in a bunch about it, then you're in the wrong place. You're not viable as a candidate for an apprenticeship. So be prepared for somebody to look at your portfolio. Be prepared for somebody to rip it apart, maybe even more so than they need to. And know that actually might be a test of like, okay, well, can you handle this criticism? Can you improve on it? And if they say no to you during that time, as far as like you showing the portfolio, them ripping you apart, and then you bounce because they told you no, draw some more drawings, work on the things that they told you to work on, and then come back. And if they see that, then they might be like, yo.
Exactly. You got to empty your cup before someone can fill it. You feel me?
And you got to understand it's only to help. Like, artists are doing that critique to provide some type of positive, you know, just help.
Here and there, though, I'm not going to lie. You probably will find a motherfucker that's just going to rip you just because there are some asshole tattooers that will just do it just to do it.
And some people just don't want you to be in the industry because they feel like there's a limited amount of customers.
Right.
There's too many tattooers in the industry.
Oversaturation.
It's oversaturated the market. I met a lot of guys like that that really just ripped my stuff apart, even though their drawings weren't even as good as mine at the time. And I was just like, what a dick. You know what I'm saying? But they're just trying to discourage you to keep you out of the industry. Know that there's some people like that out there too, and just try to let it roll off your shoulder. Still be polite, because you might meet them later on in the industry, and they, you know, if you're a dickhead back to them, it might end up you out of a job that you potentially were trying to get or whatever, because they're connected to the people that might be hiring you. So
that happens all the time. People will be like,
nice.
hey, what do you know about this person right here? What do you know about that person right there?
It's a small world.
You know, it's a small world. So, like, you know, be careful who you talk shit about, who you rub shoulders with. But it just comes back to just being relentless with your search. Like, you cannot give up. You have to keep pounding the pavement, keep going to shops. Don't call. Go in. Don't email. Go in. I've gotten emails. I'll look at the shit and just don't even reply because I don't have the time to, or, you know, I can't put a face to the person. I don't see any work. Don't send me a 5-minute email, you know, with no work on it. You don't have any work in the email. Like, what am I looking at?
Because I laugh when I see an email like that.
James
I just
laugh.
laugh.
Yeah, you don't reply to anybody.
Right, I'm not gonna reply to that. You know, like, show me you're serious. Like, pull up on me. at whatever time with your book. Let me see your shit. You know,
Yeah.
I will stop. I
In
will stop
person.
what the fuck I'm
If
doing.
you're in person,
I will stop what the fuck I'm
if
doing.
somebody calls, I'm not giving them the time of day.
Right.
If somebody emails, I'm not giving them the time of day. If they stop in person, then I'm gonna respect the fact that they took the time and energy
Takes a lot of balls to do
get
that
into the
shit.
shop, because it's scary. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop what I'm doing and I'm gonna check out their portfolio, even if I'm already tattooing, and I'll at least flip through it and
Right.
let them know what's cracking with it. You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
How do you guys feel about the importance of getting tattooed by some people that you look up to in order, say you're in this position where you're looking for an apprenticeship, you're kind of interested in getting into being a tattooer.
Huge.
That's
and
definitely a good way
the
to
benefit
get
of
in on
getting
it,
tattooed
for sure.
One of the best
That's how
ways
your apprentice got in, right?
Well, she was friends with one of her best friends was getting tattooed by me.
Nicole
and
Reeves?
she came. Yeah, Nicole Reeves. She's actually a member of for our friends too.
And she's a tattooer.
And she's a
at our
tattooer
shop now.
at our shop now.
Went through her whole apprenticeship.
Went through a whole apprenticeship, and she came in with a friend that was getting tattooed by me and asked if she could sit in on the session, and I told her and that was a really great way for her to spend many hours with me, and we got to know each other. And then afterwards, she was talking about how she was getting ready to, she was thinking about getting into tattooing. And then I told her, all right, bring some drawings and bring a portfolio and all that stuff, and we'll talk about it. And that's a real easy way, like I said, to get a tattooer to spend that extra time with you. Even if it's not your friend getting tattooed. Like X said, you can go get tattooed yourself.
Right.
And you're spending money with them, so you're already investing with them, which shows that you're serious about it. You're able to actually watch the tattoo, hopefully, if it's on an area of the body where you can watch.
And you're
that they're
building
doing on
rapport
you.
with that person over an extended period of time.
Yeah.
They're getting to know your personality. They're getting to feel you out, see how bad you really want it. And I don't care what any artist says. If they can, pick up on that and, vibe from you that you really want this shit, they're gonna internalize this shit because they had that same hunger, that same drive.
We recognize
and
it.
it's hard to say no to a motherfucker like that, especially after you spent that much time. Like I kind of call that that's like the hang around, way of going about getting an apprenticeship. Just being present in the shop, helping out if you can. Once you get to that level, we're like, all right, what can I do for you? Can I take your trash out, or can I go grab you lunch, or whatever? Do whatever the you can do to try and build your rapport, build that relationship,
To just
cultivate
be
it.
there.
Yeah, just be
And
there.
that's part
initiative.
of being persistent.
You know? Because that doesn't mean you're getting paid. You're not an apprentice or anything, but your presence is being, validated and warranted by the artists around you.
There could also be a situation. I know I've done this where I can recommend other artists. Say I'm not in a position to actually take on an apprentice at the time, and then I'm just like, you know what? It's like you said, it's hard to pass up on this person who really wants it, and I know it. I see it. We know when we see it right in front of us, and it's like, well, maybe I can pass this off. We know tons of different artists, so
Right.
it's just like maybe it's not even at our shop, and I can just be like, see if anybody's
right. I
interested
know a
in
guy
taking them
knows
on.
a guy type of shit.
Yeah,
But,
just building the connection is good, and
yeah.
showing up over and over and being persistent is good. And even if somebody tells you no, you can come back over and over, and as long as they're not kicking you out of the shop, a lot of times that's what people expect to see. Actually, some people might tell
Right.
you no just to see how you react to it. And like I said, when you come back with more drawings, and maybe you just ask, hey, is it cool if I just hang out on the couch and draw for a little while or something?
Right.
That's kind of how you get in. And then sometimes you, like X said, you build that rapport. They get to know you. And, it's important, right? Like for you to get to know them and them to get to know you is important, because an apprenticeship is a commitment that might last a couple of years. And you got to, as an artist, we got to kick it with this person, this potential apprentice, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, all the time. Maybe
We
even
gotta like you.
we gotta like you.
Yeah.
We have to like being around you. Otherwise, we're not gonna want to do it. So if we don't
Right.
want to be around you, we're gonna choose not to, because let's be frank. As an apprentice, you're gaining more from us than we are from you. I can take my own trash out, and actually, it takes me a shorter amount of time to take my own trash out than to hover over somebody and make sure that they're not touching the wrong things and cross-contaminating stuff.
Right. Until
while
they
take
get
my-
it down
until
for
they
the
get it
first
down.
couple months and shit.
Which takes a while. It's like
Yeah.
6 months before you can go on autopilot doing your duties without me having to directly supervise you. So really, it's not in our best interest to have an apprentice unless we believe that person, we're going to get along with them well enough to get past that 6 month period or
Right.
whatever.
And
it
then
is.
get some kind of value out of it later if you own the shop, or I don't know, or if you're just doing it goodwill, pass on the buck type of situation. I don't know.
Let's
However,
talk- as far as getting value out of it, let's talk about whether or not people should pay for apprenticeships.
I think it can be warranted to do that. It really just depends on I think it heavily depends on who the artist is. Like if Josh Duffy was like, all right, my apprenticeships are $5K. That's
reasonable.
That's hella.
5K,
Whatever.
cheap.
$20K. If Josh Duffy was having out $20K apprenticeship, that's still
And think about art school.
That's
Think about how
reasonable.
much
It's
art
hella
school
reasonable.
costs.
Fuck yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Like, this is easily
So-
worth that.
I feel like anyone in this room, you know, if you wanted to charge for an apprenticeship, you could. Me personally, I probably never would. I feel like the way I want to go about it though is like, you know, train a motherfucker and then have them work for me. They can pay me back that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I know how hard it is being a apprentice. You ain't got shit. You're hungry. You're just trying to pay your bills and learn this shit at the same time.
When you're first
It's a lot
starting
to
off,
do.
coming up with even like I remember some people were talking about $3,000 for an apprenticeship, $3,000.
It seems
And
like an
that seems
astronomical
like-
number.
That seems like an impossible amount of
Yeah.
money to get when you're at that level when you're first starting because you're like, yo, I'm making $0K a month. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
$0K.
Like it's ramen and hot and spicy chicken sandwiches over here. Like
I just
I'm
got
on
out
the
of prison
bus.
and I live with my mom. You know what I mean?
Like that's just not feasible, you know. Especially, and then you got to think about like the tattoo equipment too. Like that cost of it and the apprenticeship seems just so daunting
I
at
think
the
just
point.
us
At that
wanting
point,
an apprentice to succeed overall
Yeah.
is the end goal. So it's
Right.
like I don't want to take money out of your pocket that could potentially go towards
Right.
your equipment or like other things that
I'd rather get it on the back end. Come work for me after it, you know.
There you go. Yeah.
And sometimes apprentices help outside of the shop too. You know, have met a lot of artists, and this is not totally out of the ordinary or nothing. It's not them abusing the power of the mentor apprenticeship relationship, or they'll be like, "Yo, I'm moving. Come help me move all my
Right.
stuff.
Come
from
wash
this
my
house
car.
to another. Come
Shit.
wash my car or something like that.
Yeah.
Run this errand for me. I don't have time.
Right.
It's
Go
not
take my
even-
dog to the dog park.
Take
you
my
know?
dog to the dog park.
done
or
that
something.
one.
Yeah, sometimes people do that, and that's totally.
You know?
That's just them getting value from the person that they're giving value to.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, it's cheaper than college. If you look at it that if you're one of the people that's gonna have a chip on your shoulder about that, as far as like I don't want to be told what to do and all that stuff, you got to shrink your ego.
Don't
because
act like you're too good for it.
don't act like you're too good
Right.
for it. You shouldn't be above anything.
What's some crazy shit y'all did when you were an apprentice? Like I had to rub the toilet with a toothbrush. That was probably the wildest shit I had to do. And then I got embarrassed one time too on some hazing shit. I don't really haze apprentices anymore, but like when I was coming up, my apprentices got hazed.
The culture was heavy
Yeah.
like that back in the day.
Yeah.
Way even before our time.
It was
I mean,
probably
you
even
look
worse.
at 10 years
It was
ago,
probably
20
way
years ago.
worse.
Yeah, people are getting dirty needles thrown at them and
Yeah.
cussed out, punched in the face for up.
I used to get lit up with airsoft guns.
I
and
know a
shit,
guy
bro.
that I won't say
Yeah.
his name, but we all know a guy that lit an apprentice on fire one time. I didn't get a lot of hazing, and I didn't have to do a lot of crazy like stuff that was related to punishments because as an apprentice, I was totally on top of it. I was always the first one in the shop, last one to leave. All my responsibilities were taken care of without anybody having to tell me anything after they showed me something once or twice. I have it down pat, and that's why mine finished so quickly, and that's why I never really got a whole lot of shit as an apprentice.
I was a
But
shitty apprentice.
I'm a
not
rare
gonna
breed.
lie.
You know what I mean? I'm
James
just.
was
I remember.
I was barely sweeping and mopping. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I had to be told to do things, and then I like threw parties in the shop too after hours. Like I was a piece of shit. Don't be like me.
Priest
Or
told
do.
me,
I mean,
Priest
that
told me
sounds
I was
awesome.
the hardest working apprentice he had ever seen in his career, and I said, "You never will see one again that worked
Yeah.
harder than me."
So-
I was just on grind mode
That's
back
facts.
then. But I was
That's
a 26-year-old man. I mean, you knew me during my apprenticeship too. I was going ham.
Most
I know.
apprentices are a lot younger and then just don't take it as seriously
James's
as they
drive,
should.
Though his hunger, and especially at that point, was bar none, just fierce.
Yeah,
Just amazing.
it's died
Incredible
down as
to
I've gotten
watch.
older, but at that time,
Oh, dude,
I was a cold.
I mean, you're still like going ham.
I was a
like,
cold
in
guy.
a lot of different ways,
Yeah.
but I think it's just
Thanks.
evolved. As an apprentice, he poured out a lot of energy into exactly what he wanted.
You knew
And it
James when he was
ultimately-
apprentice?
dude.
Yeah.
You know, we actually kind of have a wild past, I guess.
Yeah.
James worked as an apprentice at the shop that I kind of slid into, but I was only a part-time artist. I had a full-time job, and
James
I
like I
also
could be
had
full time.
yeah, I had a lot of like responsibilities, dude. I had like so much like court fines I had to pay for, so I was like grinding like just a full time job, and then also just like tattooing like as much as I could, because
Yeah.
like it was basically just friends at that point. So yeah, eventually they told me kick rocks, and James took my spot.
That was the type of shop where they would pretty much hire anybody to get in there and tattoo, regardless of their skill
Really
level.
good
They just
artists
wanted
that
money,
they
huh?
had.
Adam was in a situation, the way I understand it from us talking about it afterwards, he was in a situation where he bit off more than he could chew too early in terms of getting into a shop semi or quasi professionally. And you know, I was in a situation where I'd already had a little bit of tattoo experience from before I got my apprenticeship. I was progressing really quickly, and it got to the point to where the owner of the shop was like, I need another full-time artist here, and it looks like you're pretty much done, and I don't want you to go to somewhere else. So They ended up firing Adam because he was so inexperienced and young that he really just wasn't ready yet, is what it was.
Oh, I really was not. And
I was ready at the time. So
Absolutely.
we ended up switching spots. And then what did you do after that, Adam? You went into totally different fields, graphic design, art school, all that different stuff.
I was a graphic and motion designer for 10 years, actually. I moved to Seattle.
Doing big time shit, too.
Dude, so much stuff. And it was a wild ride. It was great. I had an amazing time doing all of that. And it was a lot of great experience. And then it's kind of funny because I had that initial kind of brush with the tattoo industry, that was it for me. Despite all the stuff that I ended up getting into later on with design and just all of that,
which was a lot of stuff that could have made you a lot of money too.
Oh, absolutely.
But it wasn't about the money.
No, it was great. But I think fulfillment, like I just knew it was just like, this is it for me. Like tattooing, that was always what I wanted to do. So I reverted back.
What was the moment that brought you back?
I managed to shop in downtown Seattle, in Belltown, Seattle. I was there for a couple of years, and
that's wild. You were
just got me
managing,
back
but you
into
were
it,
already
like,
tattooing.
my foot in the door kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
his brush with
that's
tattooing was
crazy.
so small that like if I were from the outside,
like a
from my
blip.
perspective, looking at Adam's career, I would say he's only been tattooing professionally for like 4 years, 5 years, something like that, right? Even though back then, we're talking like this is 10 years ago when we were at that little shitty shop in Chandler. That shop sucked. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't even exist anymore.
Right.
But that was 10 years ago. But that was just him having his first little brush with it. But at that time, in my opinion, I wouldn't really consider like he was doing it for real. Now he's like grown man focused on it. He's been tattooing for 4 years. He's progressing super quick. And
I think
he's a really good artist now.
I started to just really focus and dial in when at the time I did not have what it took to take it seriously, and as much as like I'd grown up drawing my whole life, like I thought I wanted it at the time, but it's like once I was like thrown into it, it's like I wasn't ready, like 100%.
And as far as circling it back to the whole like apprentice subject of this video, sometimes that happens very often where people will have these little brushes with tattooing earlier on in their like career, so to speak, like before their career even starts, and then for some reason the timing won't be right, and they'll kind of leave it alone, go try some other things, but then somehow magnetically they just circle back to it and they're like, yo, like this is what I want to do. And then they regroup, refocus their efforts, and then they actually make it. So if that feels like it's somebody like you to where you've given it a shot before and you enjoyed it, but it just didn't click into place for you,
do it again.
Do it again. Sometimes it'll work, you know what I mean? And sometimes it'll work, fantastically like it did for Adam.
Something that might be warranted to discuss is, supplemental avenues and supplemental information that's out here for younger tattooers out here, because a lot of motherfuckers might look at this video and be like, no, I can get on YouTube, watch me a little do outlines video, how to shade video.
Do you guys feel like tattooers still kind of harbor a lot of information? There's so much that's accessible online nowadays that everyone
that culture is going away. Back when I first started, and I know there's certain guys that are still guys or girls. Well, I never met a girl that didn't want to share information about tattooing. So I'm just going to say guys on this and not even be politically correct and include both genders. There's a lot of fucking guys out there that I've met that literally do not want to share one lick of information with you. And they say it's because the market's oversaturated, like we talked about earlier, because there's too many people getting into tattooing.
They also want to be the biggest fish in their fish bowl at their shop. They are afraid.
Fear. They're afraid that they're going to be out of a job because other people are out there that have more aptitude, are going harder, working harder, and basically they don't want anybody to catch up and start lapping them in this race. Because
the real of this situation is you can get lapped. You can get left behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're not keeping up, you're not eating.
But at the same time, it's not really a competition. I think
it's not, but you can get left behind,
You
though.
can get left behind,
Straight up.
but I think that it's unhealthy to think of it in a competitive way. Like, is this person getting better than me? Because if you're focusing on yourself, that's how you get better. And that's how you don't get left. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying like you need to be focused on everybody else, but you need to be keeping up with the times. Like if motherfuckers are shooting reels, you need to be shooting reels.
I don't shoot any reels at all. But my books were closed for 14
I think just
months.
Working around other artists.
I'm just saying general.
I gotta shoot reels.
I'm saying general. Like if motherfuckers are using cartridges, you should be using cartridges. You know what I'm saying?
If you're better,
keep
without
up with the times. That's what I'm saying. Keep up with the times.
Equipment's not the way. I'm talking artistically. I think that's where we'll go ahead.
Those are two different things. That's tech side of things and like marketing, as opposed to actual.
Because there's Tabori guys that are doing their thing.
That's true.
Technique.
That's
and
true.
just
I give you that.
application. Tattoo application. and
But
technology.
I doubt you're going to
marketing.
see any 20-year-old Tabori tattooers out there.
Nah,
though.
I haven't met any.
All right,
maybe in
then.
Japan.
Dude.
That's like our class and higher. Then I'm talking about these young bucks on IG popping off reels and doing hyper specialized
Well, that's a whole other
ornamental
subject,
bullshit.
though, as far as
You know what
social
I'm saying?
media and tattooing, how
Can
it's
we,
affected.
yeah,
it.
can we just talk about
get-
tattoo application?
Well, hold on a second.
just-
Before we do that, let's finish the point about sharing information. All right. So sharing information used to be something that a lot of tattooers weren't willing to do. It used to be really closed off, where they would guard it and be like, "This is our thing right here, and we don't want everybody to know it." And if you did share information about how to tattoo publicly, like
This
on
thing of
YouTube or
ours.
something like that, this thing of ours. So if you did share the information publicly, you would get chastised by the community or ostracized by the community, and people would look down on you for that. But that is definitely going away.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tutorial how-to stuff on the internet, on YouTube or whatever, that's actually legit and
I'll
good
be
stuff.
watching
I
shit
think
on
it's
YouTube,
great.
dude,
I watch
for
it all the
real.
time. But here's where I feel like, you know, the younger generation might have a disconnect. They might see that as like, you know, the meat and potato. What I'm trying to say is the apprenticeship is your meat and potatoes. The supplementary information on the internet is like a side dish.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You don't want to treat the side dish like the main dish.
That's the dessert.
All right? Yeah, that's your dessert. It's to help you
And you
get
don't
to
eat
the
your
next
dessert
level.
first.
But like, you don't just go on here. Yeah, you only dessert first. You gotta eat the main course first, because that's what you need. It's really necessary.
There's so much more you learn
more
during an
value.
apprenticeship than just how to pull a straight line or how to mix a black and gray setup together or whatever. There's stuff during your apprenticeship that you learn about how a shop operates, what the social dynamic between artists is, how people
Customer
in a
service.
shop that's customer service, how to do
service.
consultations,
Yeah.
Consultations,
how to
talking
estimate
people.
how much a tattoo might cost or whatever. How to deal with difficult clients. You know what I mean? All those different things you learn during an
then there's
apprenticeship.
the little small things like, you know, needle configuration, stroke, you know, the tattoo theory, the theory behind tattooing.
It's
There's a
super
lot of shit
complex.
that you're not
There's
going
a
to
lot
get
to it.
from a YouTube video. You're not.
And if you do, you're getting bits and pieces,
Right.
and you're getting a crash course.
I think the best analogy would be a hunter. You've never hunted. You don't know anyone that hunts, but you go on YouTube and you look up videos on.
And you've never been
know,
outside.
You've never been outside. You don't know what the fuck
Never
to
even
do.
been out in the woods.
You're trying to piece all this shit together. Yeah, you could do it, and it's probably
You're
going to
gonna
take
go out
a
on your
long
own?
time. It's going to take you years to do it, but it'd be much easier if you just hire a guy for $3,000 and go out and there with
Or just
Steve
go with a
Ranella
friend
or
that does
some
it all the
shit.
time or something
Yeah.
like that, you know? Instead of going out there and potentially
Right.
freezing to death because you didn't
Right.
bring one crucial piece of
Right.
equipment.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
being immersed in it in a real applied way is better than just trying to absorb information on the internet in a theoretical way and then piecing together the applied side of it on your own. That's basically... that right there is setting yourself up for failure. Don't get me wrong. You can do it that way, and you can end up becoming a professional tattooer that way, but there's a lot of other pieces that are missing that you'll have to gain later, like when you get into like a real shitty shop,
Yeah.
and then you have to try to figure out
And
stuff.
you got to wing it at that point, and like it's just not cool. We've all been there where we're like, all right, we're in now, or at least for me, like it was like a lot of shit I still didn't know.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, I gotta act like a professional because you know I'm here now. Type
It's like
of shit.
learning how to drive
You
by
know?
stealing your mom's car when you're 13 years old, rather than learning how to drive by taking a driver's course and then being like, okay, now I know how to parallel park. That's
But
how I learned how to parallel
it's
park.
doable. I'm not gonna say it's not doable. For those of you that still want to say F us, I'm gonna do it how I want to do. You know, more power to you. Because there's
Honestly,
some of the
yeah.
best. There's some of the best artists that I know personally that are
self-taught.
self-taught.
It just
They
takes
made
longer.
it happen.
It's
Yeah.
the long, hard
I mean,
road.
If that's what you want to do, take whatever we say with a grain of salt.
Right.
Run with it on your own.
You do
Yeah,
your
we
own
don't-
All we're
thing.
doing is providing our experiences, and you can take it or leave it.
Right. And
I don't-
fucking whatever, how many years from now you come up to one of us, you see us out in the street or some shit, and be like, yo, I made it. I'll shake your hand. Look at your work, and your work's dope. I'll shake your hand.
Sometimes people
Straight
hit
up.
me up. I had a dude hit me up at the Arizona Invitational Convention. He came up and was like, yo, dude, when I first started tattooing like 3-4 years ago, I watched all your videos or whatever. And he's like, they were a huge inspiration and gave me a lot of information and actually helped me in the beginning or whatever. So I don't know if he did an apprenticeship or he was self-taught or whatever. But, I mean, you know,
Just
sometimes
met you at a
information on the
convention.
internet is helpful.
James
you know?
Yeah.
also has a lot of good content, like amazing content on just kind of, I guess, procedural stuff for people who are looking into
More
getting
client-based.
tattooing.
It's more client-based.
Or,
I'm gonna
sorry,
get-
not into tattooing, getting a tattoo. If
Yeah,
you're
I'm gonna
looking
start
into
getting more
a
into the
tattoo.
apprenticeship situation as far as making my own like real organized. Well, they're not super organized because I just make bullet points, but real organized stuff. I'm gonna do a whole series of videos on that whenever I get back into it. It's been about 6 months since I posted a video.
What you mean? You're gonna make like twos now?
Nah, well, I might do some of that stuff too, because I got a couple of
Change
things.
your stance on that. I remember there was a time you were like, I ain't
Well,
never doing
it's because the
that
culture's
shit.
changing. That's why. It's because the culture's
Times are
changing. At the
changing.
time,
He's
when I
evolving.
started my YouTube channel, how long ago was that? That was like 4 years
You've
ago
been
or
at
something
that
like
for
that.
a little while now.
Yeah.
Dude,
So-
you blew up fast.
Yeah, and I pumped the brakes on it though, because I kind of started feeling like I didn't want to be famous like on that level.
So is there anything else we need to cover on this stuff? Like,
You know,
I
it's
feel
such
like we're getting close.
It's such a deep subject that I feel like we could delve into this even more. So maybe we'll make a part 2. But yeah, basically, let's just recap what we did talk about.
Yeah.
You got to work on the art first and foremost. You got to be good at drawing or good at painting, and you have to be able to put those hours in, and you have to have proof that you're doing that via a
Right.
portfolio.
Get that portfolio.
Show up in
then-
person.
Right. And then you want to show up in person. Don't call, no emails, pound the pavement. And don't be afraid to return to places that you've already been to if you get denied, if you get rejected.
And do your research on which shops you show up to in the first place, because it's better to have a good teacher than it is to have a bad teacher, because a bad
Right.
teacher might actually set you back more than it's actually helping you in your career.
Right. People respect that you did the research, you investigated who they are as a person, investigated their shop. It shows that you took that extra mile.
Make
so
sure
you should definitely do that.
that you are open to criticism, constructive
Yeah.
criticism.
Yep, and humble yourself and make your ego small, and know that you need your mentor more than your mentor needs you.
Right.
So never feel any sort of bitterness or chip on your shoulder when they tell you to wash their car or clean up the shop or scrub the toilet or whatever, because those things are a small price to pay for the knowledge that you're getting from your mentor.
Right. And just make sure you use that internet information supplementary and not primarily. All right. You feel me?
Yeah,
All
well,
right.
thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and
Appreciate it.
we'll make another video with more parts to this, and there'll be a lot more information for you guys. Thanks for watching. See ya.